I'm answering a viewer question today, and this is in response to username Matthias Garay 470, and this comment was on my video about how to recover from years of social isolation. And the question goes, what can you do if you're on the autism spectrum and you fear that people will reject you because you don't have a social life? And now, let's start answering this question in a little bit more depth than usual. So the first thing I want to do is review the first video from 2024. And why I want you to review this is because I want you to observe this problem from a detached state. Right now, when you're in this experience of this problem, your feelings and negative emotions are in charge of your brain, and it's the filter that's gonna basically intercept all the messages that I'm saying and apply its negativity filter on top so that it doesn't feel neutral, right? We've all had this experience before. When we're angry, we do things that we normally wouldn't do. When we're drunk, we do things that we wouldn't normally do, and such. So, the message from my first video of 2024 is that whatever happens in your life, whatever you're experiencing right now, is likely the result of a grand pattern in your life. So, wherever you are in life, you're there for a reason. And the reason that you're in this place in the first place is going to try its hardest to keep you in the same place, simply because that's how habits work. And that's how repetitions work, right? So, you are not social right now, and you have fears about being rejected. You have you are on the ASD spectrum. And now, this is not going to change. But in order to make a meaningful change from this state, we have to be willing to create some fundamental changes to the reason why we're in the first place. So, everything that I tell you in this video is based on the assumption that you are actively going to consider these points in reassessing the situation from a different perspective, different point of view. Now, I am by no means an ultimate authority in the ASD experience, but I do know that number one, it is hard for people with ASD to socialize. And that is just the way it is, right? Because the tendency of the ASD brain wants to make things very literal, wants communications to be brief and efficient. You want to spend more time talking about the things that are of interest to you. You want to engage in the patterns that interest you, and you want to engage in behaviors and activities that you really like, your body is forcing you to do at that moment. Now, mainstream socializing behavior differs from that. And therefore, when you see ASD from the normal, like neurotypical point of view of socializing, you just have to start with the acceptance that it is different by nature. Okay? And now, when we accept this, the knee jerk reaction is to think that we are doomed because everything sucks, right? Same goes for ADHD, same goes for basically anything. Like, for example, being a minority in America, and for example, being a refugee in a prominent country where there's not a lot of refugees. So when you have an objective view that from the world's perspective, not mine, from the world's perspective of the general current of how things go, ASD stands out, especially in the realm of socialization. And now, instead of looking at this as a strict penalty that is only bad, we have to first come to terms with the fact that it is just different. So, for example, when you are an American, you are going to have an opinion about guns. It's very likely that you will have an opinion about guns, whether it be pro or against control. But if you ask a person where there's from a, if you ask a person from a culture where there's not a lot of guns, they're likely to think that guns are things that just happen in the movies. Nobody really has realistic idea of like what gun ownership is because it's so detached from their lived reality. But now, like, are guns good or bad? Guns just are, right? But we form opinions around it. When it's good for self-defense, when you have other no and you're overpowered by physical strength and size discrepancies, it's an excellent tool for self-defense. But when it comes to goes to the wrong hand with the wrong intention and the wrong timing and everything like just falls into the bad spot, it can be a lethal force where otherwise it wouldn't be that lethal, right? So there's like pros and cons to everything. So now, same applies for ASD. Is ASD bad? It's bad when you look at it from compare it from the neurotypical experience of socialization. But it's good when it comes to memory retention. It's good when it comes to depth of knowledge about a certain topic. It's good when it comes to self-preservation. It's good when it comes to amount of intensity when things align, right? So compare that to the neurotypical experience, then you see that in those realms, ASD is an advantage. So in summary, what I'm saying is the ASD experience is just a different experience from the neurotypical experience. But again, the lens that we typically view this in wants to make us believe that it's a liability. It sucks and you're doomed for socialization. And the more you understand that from a neutral perspective, oh yes, from the neurotypical perspective, that's true. But it's not all good, it's not all bad because nothing is all good, nothing is all bad. When you can come to this objective view about the ASD experience and how it's just different, that's the starting point. Third is commitment. A lot of mind drama comes from when you can't commit to one thing because you want both kind of a thing, right? So you want your cake, you want to be able to see it and you want to be able to savor it, but at the same time you want to eat it. But by eating it, you're harming the cake, and so on, right? So you understand. Now, neutrally, from the neurotypical experience, you have your lived experience makes it hard to socialize. You accept that. And now, but the thing is, you want to socialize. And at the same time, you want it to not be difficult. You want to not fear. You want it to be ideally comfortable for you, right? So now, it has to be a commitment. And when you make a commitment, you can sort of gladly take the cost of your discomfort. So, for example, if you want to just accept that, you know what, socializing in the normal sense is just gonna be really difficult for me. So, I'm gonna commit to just keeping my life experience authentic. And you know what? When some relationships and when some friendships happen organically, I will gladly take those. But I'm not going to try and play the neurotypical socialization game because it's just way too hard for me to do that. That's one good commitment that you can make, right? You are committing to your authentic experience, but now, as a cost of that, you're gladly paying that you're not going to socialize in the neurotypical sense. The other way is, you know what? I understand that in order for me to socialize as a person in ASD, it's going to be difficult and it will be kind of an uphill battle. But you know what? At this moment of my life, it can change later, but at this moment, I really want to try socializing. So, as much as it will be difficult for me, and as much as my life will want to continue to put me in this zone where I'm really uncomfortable and I want things to be nice and comfortable for me, as much as I recognize that, I want more than that to commit to good socializations so that I can have a social life. And now, with that, you have a chance at forming good social relationships. It's not guaranteed because simply because you don't control other people, right? You only control your actions. But you can get started on the path to socializing in the neurotypical sense, in a largely neurotypical world. Or, who knows, maybe you will find a way to socialize with other neurodivergent people. But the thing is, it has to come from that commitment of, yeah, you know what? It will be uncomfortable simply because it's new and simply because the world doesn't really look good in terms of neurotypical neurodivergent socialization. So I'm willingly going to take that inconvenience and discomfort factor because I am in charge of my life and right now I want socialization. So it depends on that commitment. When you can make that commitment, weighing the pros and cons and deciding which one you want, then every option becomes a good choice because you are making it from like a place of commitment. And you're not this like, yeah, I want socialization and I want other people to not reject me, but at the same time, like I am autistic and I am on the spectrum. It's because you want both, but realistically, it's really difficult to get both. You're having the mind drama, right? So I want you to make that commitment. At this point, you might be thinking, well, you didn't really answer my question because the question is about fear, all right? Fear of rejection. And now, the neat thing is, you repeat the process for fear. Now, fear is a very big emotion that controls so many people's lives, right? Like, I'm willing to bet everyone in their life at least once experienced being controlled by fear. Being controlled, I mean, what can you do? What can't you do? Is dictated by fear. Like maybe you'd love to go bungee jumping, but fear gets in the way. Maybe you'd like to go for that like high paying job, but fear of rejection and fear of being disappointed gets in the way. Maybe you want to compete for jujitsu, but fear gets in the way, right? So fear gets to determine like the course of your life and not you, right? The difference is I'm gonna do it regardless of whether I'm afraid of it or not, versus I'm afraid, so I'm not gonna do it. So fear is the subject, and you become the object for so many people at least once in their life. So we understand that, you know what? Fear, by the grand pattern and by the grand stream of things, is going to try to stop me from doing things. That's same for the fear of rejection. Yeah. And now, understanding that and fully accepting that, what do I want to do? Do I want to slowly just test the waters of like what is fearful for me, what happens when I cross that line? Do I want to kind of play with that boundary so that fear still plays a role in my life, but I'm always trying to evaluate where my boundary can go intentionally or not? Or do I want to take a more radical approach of like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care if I don't care how fearful I am. I'm just gonna do it. And both are options, right? Like one's a gentler way of inviting change, but at the cost of maybe being more time consuming. And the second one is a more dramatic way that might end up making you feel a lot of big feelings, but at the same time can really have you committing to your life. Either one, they both have its pros and cons. They're just different. Not one is strictly better than the other, right? And it depends on what you want to do. So the very important question to you now that you come to kind of a neutral ground on this. What do you want to do? And that is the $1 million question. And what do you want to commit to do? Constantly asking that for re-evaluation of that answer and living true to that statement is how basically you live the life that you want while understanding that the grand pattern of life wants to pull you back behind. Hope that helped. And as always, if you want to ask a specific question, you can do so in any comment or email me at billy@julylifecoach.com. By the way, Another commenter commented on the original video about how to improve your social skills, and I completely agree with their approach. The comment is by username Durval Senda. One small tip I have is reading out loud. Read a book as if you were talking to someone, or accentuating certain parts and changing the flow and tone of others as if you're having a conversation. Speaking and being social are like a skill like any other. People who went through years of social isolation basically atrophy their ability to communicate and their ability to fluently speak. So when they jump into social scenarios, it feels like their communications skills are glitching, which makes them anxious, which makes the glitch even more, and so on and so forth. That's why I think the exercise of it is so perfect. You train the mind muscle connection of your vocal organs and your communication skills, and on top of that, you're reading a book, you're something, I mean, which is already good in and of itself. So I completely agree with this approach. So if it's the skill of talking that you want to practice and drill and add more reps in, this can be a perfect way to do it for you. All right, that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.